Madam Chair. I'm sorry I was late. I was in another committee. Welcome, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
I've still got a lot of work to do on your proposed budget, but I just wanted to offer a few top-line comments. After 15 months, I think any fair-minded person who's paid attention would have a general idea of the principles of the Biden administration. And it seems to me that the Biden administration believes in bigger government. It believes in higher taxes. It believes in more regulation. It believes in more debt. Based on the president's proposed budget, it believes in a weaker military. Not by its words, but by its actions, I think it believes in higher energy prices. I think that the Biden administration hates fossil fuels, on which, at the moment, the greatest economy in all of human history depends. I think the Biden administration thinks that's a mistake. And I think the Biden administration thinks that higher energy prices will somehow wean the American people off of fossil fuels. The attitude seems to be, not in words, but in deed, that we can see the future better than the American people because we're experts. And the American people just need to take their medicine with these higher energy prices, and in the long run, they'll be better off because we'll use them to get rid of fossil fuels. Now, let me talk about your budget. It's not going to pass in its current form. I think you know that. I support wind and power, but I'm an all of the above energy type guy. I think eventually we should, and I don't mean sometime in the next century, we should realistically ask ourselves, when are wind and power going to be able to stand on their own feet without subsidies? I also believe in nuclear power. I can tell from your budget that at least some of your woke colleagues at the department don't. I also believe in hydroelectric power. I believe in hydrogen. I said it, but I'm going to say it again. I believe in nuclear. And I think you should ignore the woke voices. I think it's clean energy, and the new technology with these small modular nuclear reactors has great potential. You shortchanged them in your proposed budget. That tells me a lot. But I also believe in fossil fuels. And I think it's wholly unrealistic, certainly now, certainly for the foreseeable future, and maybe forever, to think that this world can run without fossil fuels. I'm very disappointed in your budget at its lack of emphasis on geoengineering. I know your woke colleagues don't like geoengineering because they think it takes our eye off the ball of climate change. But I think that's
Senator John Kennedy challenges Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm over President Biden's proposed energy budget, calling out policies on fossil fuels, nuclear energy, and rising energy prices. Senator
Is an essential part of our clean baseload power, and we ought to be keeping the existing fleet afloat. And we just issued $6 billion in civilian nuclear credits to be able to do that. And to hopefully have as many of them stay operating as possible. But we've also got a $2.5 billion commitment in advanced nuclear reactors as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law column of our budget. That's number one. So we agree on that, and we want to continue funding the advanced nuclear reactors. Number two, we agree on hydroelectric power, and we want to see more dams. And we want to make sure that we are taking advantage of a form of energy that is clean, dispatchable, baseload power. I would also throw geothermal in there in that same sort of category. With respect to wind and solar, your question about when they become essentially reliable baseload power is all contingent upon making sure that technology of batteries becomes cheaper. We have a goal, Earthshot, of getting down the price of long-duration storage by 90%. And when we get down the price of long-duration storage, essentially wind and power become clean, dispatchable baseload power. Here's where we don't agree. This administration believes in the importance of decarbonizing the fossil fuel industry. We know that we've gotten here for the past 120 years based upon fossil fuels. We acknowledge that. And we also know that technology for the next 100 years can power us going forward. Decarbonizing is really important. So we agree on hydrogen, for example, and that bipartisan infrastructure law invests $9 billion in hydrogen hubs. And I think one of them that's going to vie for it is in your region. Mm-hmm. But we make sure that we can decarbonize natural gas, for example, and couple it with carbon capture and sequestration. We're also big believers in the technology associated with direct air capture and other carbon dioxide removal strategies. That's another $3.5 billion in the budget. Do you mind if
I stop you and ask you a question about LNG? I saw the president's statement. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. The president, about a month ago, maybe a few weeks ago, time runs together, said, I want to expand LNG exports. But then I looked at the fine print of his statement. He said, but I want the plants that produce the LNG to be powered only with clean energy. And then he said, but I am not going to change the regulatory environment for oil and gas. And shortly after that, he came out with new proposed rules for NEPA that will make it impossible to build a pipeline. Don't you think that's misleading?
I'm not sure exactly what statement you're referring to, but he did go to Europe and said that we will provide another 15 billion cubic meters per year. We will increase our partnership with them. So as a result, the Department of Energy has permitted 4 additional LNG terminals, allowing their volumes to go to non-free trade agreement countries in a way to fulfill that. The Department of Energy and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission have both permitted another 30 billion cubic feet of export.
But don't you realize the impact that the proposed changes in NEPA are going to have on the oil and gas industry?
The proposed changes in NEPA are to make sure I am not in the EPA. It's not my column.
I know, but it's sure going to impact you.
The intent there is to continue to use technology to clean up fossil fuel emissions like methane. And so making sure that we've got facilities that are not contributing to the problem, but that are using technology, which they are excited to do. I mean, many in the natural gas world really do want to be able to deploy the technology that button down pipelines and make sure that they aren't contributing further to methane leakage.
But we tried to make NEPA a little more palatable, not get rid of it, just say you've got to give us a decision in a couple of years. In the infrastructure bill, which the president is very proud of, and he has talked about it and taken credit for it. That's not a pejorative statement. Every chance he's got. But then you turn right around and undo everything that was done in the infrastructure bill with these new proposed rules for NEPA. And I know it's coming from EPA, but Madam Secretary, you're extraordinarily intelligent. I've watched your career for years. You know as well as I do the impact this is going to have on LNG plants, on pipelines, on fossil fuel infrastructure. It's going to slow it down to the pace of an amoeba.
With respect, I fully disagree.
Okay.
I think that you
I thought
can
you
have, I think you can accelerate permitting and still respect the environment and not.
Energy future. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscriber button for more political showdown.